Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Suzanne Purcell, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or sip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of.
Natalia, thank you so much for being here. I was looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. We have met through the beauty of the internet because you had the courage to reach out and say, hey, I want to chat. I want to get to know you. I want to make a connection. I want to collaborate. What can that look like? And if I don't say it often enough, let me just say it one more time. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. I cannot tell you how much I'm open to that and how much I am the first person that would always jump on that, because I know from my own personality how hard it is to actually make that first step. And on that note, how hard it actually is for dancers, particularly, to put themselves out there, because we've been trained for so many years to say, hey, you need to wait to be discovered. So just sit tight, hang on, learn some more, exhaust yourself, get skinnier, do all the things, and then you will be good enough. Versus we're rewriting that whole story. It's like, no, I'm going to put myself out here and let other people to get to know me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to discover myself first.
Right.
So I can be, I don't know, whatever I want to be. So thank you for that.
And thank you for pointing that out. That I love that. That's completely legitimate. I feel like I have imposter syndrome a lot and doubt my self-worth a little bit. And I have to, get out of that in order to make things like this happen. So, yeah.
I think it's when we release that attachment to our ego, when we release that it's about me or my feelings or who am I to, when we take the I out of the equation and just remember our why, I think that for me makes it a little bit easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to start with a compliment, because I have yet to met somebody that is your age and has already had a journey like you, and it is so deep in self-development and has found so much value in that at your age. And I want to compliment you and use you as an example that you don't have to wait until you're in your 30s or 40s to discover yourself. You don't have to wait until your later years to do this, because we have this. I found that there is this belief out there that, your 20s are here for, partying and figuring things out. But that figuring things out can be done without all the distress on the body and the mind and the craziness. I think like there can still be joy and exploring and fun in being very cautious of how you do it. So I wanted to compliment you on that and really truly use it as an example for this younger generation that is in the studios right now, that is stepping into the performing world, that yes, you can start when you're 18. Yes, you can start when you're like 2.
Yeah.
You can rewrite your past when you're in your early 20s. There is never a time that isn't good enough or where you would be missing out on. Because it really shows in how, the trajectory of your career and where you're at right now, what your vision is, what your mission is, and giving yourself also the permission to, this is going to change, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love it if you can just give us a little bit of a background on your journey. Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. So my journey goes way back when I first started ballet at the age of 3. Then when I was 5, me and my family, we moved to Jacksonville from Mississippi, where I was at the time. And so I started going to this place called Debbie's Dance Company, and I was competing, and I discovered my love for ballet, and how much I loved it so much more than every other genre of dance that I was studying at the time. And so I had gone through to summer intensives just like other ballet dancers. And I, at 13, decided that I wanted to take it a bit more seriously and create a career in ballet and start studying more rigorously. So I left regular middle school and I moved from Jacksonville to Orlando to attend the Orlando Ballet School from the age of 13 to 18. And throughout that time, I was basically training 6 days out of the week, the whole spiel, 4 to 8 or 10 hours, depending on the time of the year and whatever we're doing at the time. And towards the end of it, I really felt stuck. I was feeling less and less inclined to step in the studio. And the thing is, I loved technique class, but I did not enjoy standing around in the back or in the corner to wait and basically observe rehearsals. And that was the point, that was a particular part of ballet that I realized I did not enjoy so much. And I was discovering that the older you get and the closer you get to finding yourself in a company role, you do more of that every day. You do less technique, less, I guess, dancing, so to speak, especially when you're first starting out in a company, and more waiting and observing and marking in the background. And so I was feeling less inspired. And it was after that summer, after high school, where I had attended 2 summer intensives, the Atlanta Ballet School Summer Intensive and the Pittsburgh Ballet School Summer Intensive. And I left those summer intensives with 2 trainee spots in either ballet company. And it was a really pivotal point in my life, because I was facing the decision of making this huge step towards becoming a ballet dancer, or I could take a completely different route altogether, because I had just finished high school. And of course, questions like college or like whatever come up. And so I reached a point where I said, I don't see myself really doing this anymore. And I needed more like an experience to get myself out of my comfort zone in terms of personal development, because I felt so sheltered from going to ballet school every day and basically living on my computer screen to do schoolwork for so many years. And so I felt like I just hadn't experienced a lot of things. And I also hadn't seen a lot of the world, which is something that I basically decided that I wanted to do at the age of 10. Ever since I learned of Europe and different cultures, I had always wanted to travel. And so I had kept in touch with a friend. I don't know if she'll hear this, Larcy, but she was basically dancing professionally with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines at the time that I was being faced with this big decision. And I was seeing that she was able to travel and dance and make a paycheck and kind of not be in the studio all the time. And that was exactly what I was looking for at the time. And so I messaged her and she told me what to expect and all the different things. And I think it was around August or September of 2017. It was around the summer of 2017. I think it was September, that I went to Miami and auditioned for Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and ended up getting the contract and spent later all of 2018 on board and traveling and dancing with them. And so it was throughout this time in particular that I was faced with a lot of situations where I had to grow as a person. I was, number one, the youngest of the cast. I was 19 at the time. And I was dancing with dancers that were around like 27, 28, 29. And it was basically because the shows that we were doing in that ship were basically the most technically challenging of the fleet, because I had to use point shoes. I actually had to dance and, use turnout and things rather than pose on a stage. So that was, I had to stay in shape for that. And so I think that was reflected in the types of dancers that were selected, of course, for that ship in particular. So it was around that time that I was facing a lot of themes around self-worth in my life. Maybe not feeling worthy because I would have trouble in the studio one day and, get flack about it from the coordinator of the shows. And I had to really build a tough skin. And I was basically dabbling in a bit of personal growth and self-development around the time that we were rehearsing in Miami in particular, because I was being challenged so much every day. And I found that I could not approach those difficulties with the same mindset that I had always had in myself. Yes.
I have a question, and I'm sorry that I'm interrupting, but
You're totally fine.
Interesting, because there are two ways that we can go in these situations, right? Like we either give in and go the fear route, where we're going to numb all of these emotions and we're going to numb it through any kind of Netflixing, phonia, drinking alcohol, that's alcohol, etc., or any kind of eating disorder, right? And we're not, that's just sometimes feels much easier to deal with these kind of challenges than actually saying, oh, hey, I think me as a person, I should be growing in order to deal with these external measures that are coming towards me. I would be interested, because it's just so rare to hear that, to actually witness that. Where did that come from? And even if that's your gut, that's hallelujah. But yeah, help us understand, where did that really come from?
I think it really did come from the background I grew up in pertaining to my family, and basically the way my parents raised me, to basically always really work hard for something that you love, to be purposeful, and to, I guess, have your own back in every situation. And with that background and having the parents that I grew up with, I was basically, I woke up to the fact that I needed to step up, because this was something that I chose for myself. I turned down two traineeships to be there and to experience all that I wanted to experience. I turned that down to grow. I reminded myself, this is what I'm here to do. This was my purpose. And if I give up now, or submit to a false negative narrative about my value, then I will not receive the lessons to learn from this experience. I will not grow and reach that next chapter that is so crucial for personal development. And so I think it was truly that really made me wake up and have a switch come in my mind and to seek outside sources other than what I was being provided at the time, which was basically criticism and corrections, and you're doing this wrong, you do it this way, oh, that's good, but this could be better. And so always hearing that, right? And so that's when I was kind of listening to different podcasts and on personal development, and I came across the notion of positive affirmations and using that to develop a greater sense of connection with yourself and prepare you for whatever you may be experiencing in the few hours ahead or in your day. And so I had never heard of that before. Positive affirmations, like affirming to yourself that you are worthy and you can do things. And so I started using that. I woke up one day and I knew that we had like a very important rehearsal in front of one of the directors. And so I was like, I need to know that I've got my back and that I can do this. Like, no matter what happens, everything will be fine. And I'm here for a reason. I was chosen to be here for a reason. And so I just needed a way to reaffirm that, because I felt like I was kind of going down a rabbit hole of fear and doubting my own worth. And so it just started that day. I did like a 5-minute positive affirmation after I got up. And it was from that day on that I kept doing it. And that was the beginning of my self-love and personal development story. And so, yeah, it started then. And basically, my whole experience of that contract was shifted because I began doing that at this time. And yes, building up on that using meditation and audible books and just listening to people about what they have to say about their lives and really being curious about other people and coming from a place of love and non-judgment has gotten me, I basically think, to the place that I am today in personal growth and self-love. Yeah.
You said something very interesting right now. You said that your entire experience changed on that contract. And that's where I want to go a little bit right now. That is that what we put in is what we're getting out, right? As much as we're showing up for ourselves, will enable other people to show up for us and to help us, meaning that, I don't know if you can relate to that, but in my schooling and my entire career, it was always that everybody else is responsible for my experience. Like, I was completely in the victimhood. Because the industry is set up that way, right? We talk about that. It's, you have to wait until somebody tells you that you're good enough, versus what I know now. No. Hang on. I get to decide. I get to decide what I will experience. And even if it's not what I wanted, I get to still decide on how I react to it and how I make that conducive to where I can pivot to, perhaps. And I think this is so important for so many dancers, for so many performing artists in general out there, to hear this, that you are in charge. Like nobody else, even though the industry may has you believe that you are not. Yes, you are. And the more and more you gain your power back, the more and more you give yourself permission to take that power back, the faster everything is going to change. I truly believe that. What do you think?
I am in complete alignment with that statement. I feel like I did grow up with that same mentality of, oh, if I get a bad spot in a ballet or in a a routine, I would basically blame it on outside sources, like, oh, it's because she's better. Oh, it's because she has better feet. Oh, it's because they like her more. Oh, it's because, I don't know, her family is giving money to the ballet, or whatever excuse it may be in my mind. And I would basically outsource my energy to all those different possible reasons as to why I'm not in the place that I wanted to be. And it was until I made that shift of basically cultivating my own energy and my own willpower within myself to take everything in a more positive light, that anything changed for me. I feel like if more dancers knew this and would approach their work and their training from this place of it coming from you, and you're in charge and you get out of this what you put in, I think every dancer would experience a positive change in whatever they feel that they are reaping from their experience in a ballet company, in a summer intensive, in their ballet school, in the parts that they're given, etc. Because I truly did notice that it was that shift in my mind that really catapulted me into self-worth and saying yes, and saying that I can do this thing that they're asking me to do. And if it doesn't come today, it'll come tomorrow. And a setback now is not a setback for forever. Yeah.
That is, it is so important if you go back and listen to this again, because there is truly, when we're looking at how dancers are being trained and how they're being, built up, like the philosophy in my school was, let's break them down and we're going to build them up the way we need them to be, right?
Yeah.
That all of this is really truly built on what your body is capable of. And we're not taking into consideration that the mind actually determines what your body is capable of.
All right.
You have a certain physique that is more conducive to being a dancer or a singer or whatever there might be for you. But if your mind isn't aligned, all of these things won't get you.
Oh, yeah.
100%, right? And that's why, and as we talked beforehand, there is this reluctancy and the disbelief that this kind of work actually has many, many positive effects on who you can become as an artist, where we look at athletes and how they train, how much they train their mind versus their physique. I mean, the proof is already there.
Yeah.
They don't really train 12 hours a day. They just don't, because they know if they consistently exhaust themselves, they're not actually getting the best out of themselves.
Right.
And we're not really implementing that in performing artists. So there is definitely a huge opportunity there. Something that I would really suggest to take on now, not tomorrow, but today.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So let's pivot just a wee bit. What are you doing now, like right now?
So at the moment, I'm a full-time college student at the University of North Florida here in Jacksonville. I am studying Nutrition and Dietetics through the didactic route. So at the end of it all, it will have been a master's and an internship, and I'll get the RD after my name, registered nutritionist, or registered dietitian, sorry. And I'm also coming up on my third year, on 3 years, teaching fitness at Pure Barre, at our local Pure Barre location in Julington Creek. I actually discovered this bar studio when I was training and preparing for that audition in Miami. And so after that contract, I returned and discovered they needed trainers. And so I auditioned and been there ever since. And I also have a Spanish minor, so I'm working towards that. Yeah, that's basically what I'm up to at the moment. And I recently started my podcast this past summer.
Yes, you did. And what a beautiful segue. So on your podcast, we talked about the discipline to self-care. And I want to bring in your expertise a little bit in terms of food and nutrition, and how it is easier to not eat and to understand that, or to fall prey to what the teachers and the directors maybe ask you to do, lose another 5 pounds and you get the contract, you get the role. How can you really be disciplined about your ability to prepare yourself for maybe a week in advance? What does that look like? And how disciplined should we be about that? And what does that do for, like, what is the end result for us, right? Like, how are we, when we're saying we're setting ourselves up for success, what does that look like?
I love that question. I think that a successful end point of that is ultimately feeling good and knowing that you did not get in the way of that or let anyone else influence that. And
that you didn't get in the way of feeling good yourself. Oh
yes. And I think it starts with sleep, number one. Honestly, as a dancer, you need sleep. You can't go nights without sleep. Number two, waking up before whatever long day it may be, however big the day may be, waking up from a place of being grounded in yourself and not letting whatever kind of projections you have onto whatever event or circumstance it may be get in the way of you being grounded in the moment. And I feel like if you're able to not get ahead of yourself, you have all the power, because a lot of times as a dancer, you can get nervous and place a lot of energy in an event that's in a couple hours or at the end of your day. And it really just ruins the energy and the kind of person that you are able to approach that event from. Yes. And then when it comes to food, it's really choosing how you want to feel during your rehearsals, how you want to feel at the end of your rehearsal day, how you want to be able to show up in your rehearsals from an energetic place, from a place of not feeling weighed down, not feeling, bloated, because that can be a downer.
Downer.
Yes. And I think it's really choosing those foods that feel good in your body. So maybe for example, if you're going to feel maybe jittery after coffee, for example, and that this event in your day, whatever it may be, like a rehearsal or an audition, is going to make you nervous anyway, maybe not having the coffee and then opting for something else that will energize you, like an overnight oatmeal. I don't know, just a little example. So basically taking into account how you want to feel and not letting a craving or a habit dictate what you do in that moment that could possibly negatively influence the rest of your day as a dancer. Yeah, I think that's the aspect of not getting in your way.
Understanding that you have a choice, and that, not that showing up in the studio isn't the only thing that requires your work and your discipline. Everything that you do during the day to set yourself up to be able to show up in the studio also requires your work, your discipline, your intention, and the very best version of yourself. I remember I like to hit the snooze button a lot. I did not know how else to recharge my body besides sleeping. I didn't know what else is out there that would give me energy back, that would fill my cup back up besides sleep, because we never talked about it. And it was always, that was the only thing that I really knew.
Oh.
therefore, even 8 hours wasn't enough because I wasn't doing anything else that would recharge me. So as a side note, like if you're waking up in the morning and you're still exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
and you slept your 8 hours or 9 or whatever your body requires, then there is something that you're not doing during the day that could help you recharge. You may not using the right nutritions. You may not spending enough time outside. You may not spending enough time away from people that's sucking out your energy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Activities that are not energy producing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest key here is that the belief that you have to give it all to this art form,
Mm-hmm.
you have to give yourself up, is something that we taught in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, perhaps in the early 2000s. It is still being taught, and it's not the truth anymore. Like we've come as a human society so far along, especially after the pandemic, where we could actually reevaluate our lives and how we want to be, what our purpose is, that this kind of teaching, this kind of belief actually doesn't fit in anymore. And we really encourage you to reevaluate how you feel every single morning, every single, afternoon and at night, because that is how you make progress.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. Oh my goodness.
Let's talk about the discipline to prep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say either your day or your week. Like, what are the options out there? And I want to share why that is. So when we're spending 8, 6, 10 hours in the studio, we're not only physically exhausted, but our brain is exhausted, right? Because of the energy from other people, of we're learning new things. Like we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Getting home. We need to have the best choices available at a very low resistance, meaning we don't even need to think what to cook. Like even now, if I have to think what we're going to have for dinner, it's not going to be a healthy option. It's going to be the fastest, quickest fix.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So help us on how to set yourself up for success for let's say, even Nutcrackers coming up. My God.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I think once you've had those long days, those long evenings in the theater or in the studio, I think it's really about, in order to have the discipline to show up for yourself in those moments and plan for maybe what you're going to consume the next day, or show up for yourself in the food choices you make for dinner and things like that. I think it's all about centering yourself for maybe a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes when you get home, just dropping in, breathing, and leaving everything you had to just go through outside of your apartment, outside of your house, wherever you are. Because I think that our brains are basically wired, of course, to constantly think about whatever you've been doing all day, especially if it's been a stressor, because, you just want to fix things. You want to maybe try to get ahead of it and just make a situation better. But if you keep stressing yourself out with whatever happened throughout your day, throughout your evening, you're not going to be able to show up for your food choices in the best way that you can. From a stressed place, you make stressed decisions and you choose foods that are going to keep you stressed. Your body internally, it's going to be inflamed. Your mind is not going to be as clear. So if you're stressed, you may reach for, a drive-through option for dinner. And it's all about coming from a place of emotional clarity and just leaving whatever you did outside your door and stepping into the present moment to be able to make a loving decision for your mind and for your body with the food choices you make after those long days. So it's all about slowing down.
Slowing down. Can we reframe the leaving it outside the door? Because I feel like when we do that, it could be understood as let's not deal with that. And I am very cautious around that, because not dealing with it means, or not dealing with it now means dealing with it later in a complex capacity. And that will bring on sometimes more problems. Remember at the studio, whatever's bothering you, leave it outside the door. Well, I don't personally agree with that. Right?
Yeah.
Because it actually makes us, I think what should be considered is how are we dealing with it? What kind of tools are we using to deal with it that can, prevent us from reliving perhaps mistakes or events that weren't favorable over and over and over again, that then suck out energy out of us more and more and more. Versus how can I use this as a learn? How can I use self-worth to understand that there is no such thing as failure and everything is a learning process? Because that takes clarity, that takes awareness, that takes a whole bunch of skills so many dancers particularly don't have. That's why they're getting home. That's why they're complaining and sitting in a corner and crying for days on end about the parrot they fell off 4 weeks ago, because they don't have the tools to deal with these kind of emotions.
I think that really does come from placing your worth and your value in your ability to execute whatever it may be in the studio. And I've experienced that so many times without even knowing it. Like you said, dancers, a lot of times, especially young dancers, they do not have that concept of awareness to recognize that they are not the situation. They have control over the situation. They determine what they experience rather than their experiences determining how they should feel about themselves. And I really do think it's coming from that place that you are able to basically come back home and maybe take 5 or 10 minutes out of your evening before you start winding down, and maybe use that awareness to maybe go in a journal and jot down what bothered you that day, what's still in your mind that happened that day, what you feel like you could have done better and just didn't happen. And I feel like just letting that energy out on paper is a really good way that dancers can implement the exercise of using that awareness. So rather than just being aware that they had a bad day, being aware of that, exercising their autonomy over that so that they can change their next day and make it more positive. And I find that a lot of things are really clarified when you can write about them. That's something that I've been using quite a bit. And I feel like that would be a really great thing that dancers can implement into their evening or whenever they come back, to avoid shoving those things aside and letting them grow bigger and bigger, like you said, and to rather recognize it in the moment, recognize that they are not the situation, and maybe open the book the next morning and see what happened the previous day, and then come to those things from a new space, a clear mind from not having had gone through those things, and really create the separation of themselves from whatever happened. And then looking through that lens of not being the situation to change that next day and make it more positive. So I think note-taking, journaling is a great way to release that energy without just letting it fester inside of you and get worse for the day to come. Yeah.
And I think the whole point is that really promoting and living your life, being from a more proactive point of view versus reacting to what is coming towards you.
Mm-hmm.
Being in charge, being back in your power, understanding that you have the very last word. And it's not always will you know exactly what to do. There will be moments where you're just like gobsmacked and your eyes are twinkling and you're like, I don't know, I need to sit down and like really feel into it and understand what just happened. But at the end of the day, you are always in control of how you are going to react to it and what your boundaries are going to be. And I believe that that is the most pivotal thinking that you can make in your entire life, is understanding that you're in charge and nobody.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. You're not your situation.
Yeah. Exactly.
You create your situation.
Exactly. And that sometimes really sucks.
Oh yeah.
We are, it's like there's nobody else to blame. It's like it's you versus you. You're in control. You're calling the shots. And where that can be really empowering, it can also be like, oh, crikey, I didn't react the right way here.
Mm-hmm.
Take responsibility. Actually, while we're talking about this, the world's best and most successful leaders, the ones that really truly lead change, are the ones that are taking responsibility for everything and anything.
Oh yeah.
Even when their employees are not doing what they want them to do, they're not pointing the fingers at them and saying, hey, you didn't do that right. No, they say, I have not given you the right tools or the right leadership that you needed to make a different decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where the difference is, right? And when we're looking at performing arts organizations, I mean, okay, blast from the past. We used to have corrections from performances written down by hand, scribbled, and put on the bulletin board for us to review. That was it.
Oh yeah.
That's how we receive corrections. And I'm like looking at that now 20 years back, I was like, wow. Oh, so backwards.
Yeah.
But it's that not taking responsibility to have a conversation, not coming from the place of, hey, I really want to help you. No, I'm just here sitting in a performance, watching Nutcracker for the 100th times and trying to figure out what is not working on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, you all did an awesome job. Awesome. And I will find you, if you haven't noticed, but this is what I noticed from the outside, like you were out of the line or something like that. It is, and we're in these organizations are so used to having this kind of unhealthy relationship that we're actually internalizing and having that kind of unhealthy relationship even with ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Right. And when we're starting to have a healthier relationship with us, with our inner voice, with our ego, with our why, then I truly believe there will be so much more power initiated from inside of you that this kind of behavior will literally just bounce off.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yes.
So.
Okay.
Do you say, like, is there something that you wanted to add? I want to hear it.
Well, the thing that basically came up to mind when you described that situation of basically looking at your corrections from a chalkboard, it basically made me think of the fact that the student, the ballet dancer, basically is left to their own devices to perceive that correction in whatever shape or form their minds may perceive it to be. As the teacher might have just wrote down a correction and maybe perceived it as like a minor thing, maybe the dancer might take it as this huge big deal, or like we've been talking about, place their worth on this correction, diminishing their value, their sense of self-worth. And if only the teacher could have come up to them and had that conversation and been like, hey, coming from a place of love here. This is just something that I noticed. This does not at all influence what I think of you. You are capable of making this little change here. But I just felt like there was truly a disconnect in that practice, and just writing down corrections and just leaving the dancer to their own devices to make whatever they make of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not taking responsibility, right? And understanding that, I am on the other side. Like, I am putting myself into a leadership role, meaning that I am here to harness their energy and their things that they're great at, to turn it into something that can actually influence change in whatever way that is. I was talking to a dancer recently, and she was watching a performance. Okay. And she said, I was sitting in the audience and I was like, I don't enjoy watching ballets. I don't enjoy it. And I replied with, why do you want to be a dancer? If you don't enjoy watching the company that you are in, then why do you want to be there? I want to be different.
Oh.
And for me, that was such a beautiful pivot to understand that. So if the audience literally feels like she felt, then why would they come, right?
Oh, yeah.
And B, okay, so how are you going to be different? And how do you know that you're different? How are you setting yourself up different? So perhaps we understand that it's hard to actually put yourself into the audience, but remove yourself enough that you can actually sit there and understand, what am I looking at? Is this actually something that I feel really connected to? Or are they just executing on stage steps because they're fearful, they're tired, or they don't even know the why? Right? And who comes to pay something or pays money for something that doesn't really make them feel anything? Right. And this is another point why it is so important for particularly dancers, young dancers, to take back that power, to understand what kind of a responsibility they have. They're not just there to show up and do what is being taught and told to them. No, they're there because they want to make an impact on the people that are coming to see them. And that starts with taking care of yourself, having the discipline to show up as your very best version of yourself and not be in your own way.
Of course. Beautifully said. That was great. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, girl. Okay, so where can we find you? Where do you hang out? And what's next for you?
Okay. You can find me on Instagram, the Natty Podcast. Will you have it in the show notes? It's like a weird spelling.
Show notes. Yeah,
okay.
It's all got to be in there. I just wanted to check. Come on, brag.
Yes. So the Natty Podcast on Instagram. If you're kind of curious about my personal life, it's Natty_Sanchez with 2 Z's. If you want to see my Instagram there. I'm basically hanging out at Pure Barre quite a lot, on my computer quite a lot, doing my studies. What's next? I am trying to see how another summer in Spain might play out. I kind of made that promise to myself this past summer, realizing that it's really my happy place. Spain is my happy place, and I love being able to practice Spanish every day and feel like I'm immersed in my roots in that sense. So I'm currently trying to see how that might pan out. Things are always changing in the world. Things might change, but I know that that is a place that I need to return to in the near future. Anything else that's next? Exams, the new year, keeping on growing the podcast, and taking steps forward in my life towards more positive versions of myself. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Last question.
Yeah.
Since, you're just past 16. Let me ask you that question anyways. With what you know today, and you could sit your 16-year-old self down and she would actually listen, what would you tell her?
16. I would tell myself that I am beautiful because growing up, I had so many false perceptions of myself. I even, after my contract with Royal Caribbean, I had a nose job. I had a rhinoplasty. So my nose used to look a bit different. And I based a lot of my worth on facial beauty at the age of 16. And I felt very disconnected with myself because I didn't feel at the moment that my outward expression of myself was truly an expression of who I knew I wanted to be. I felt like my perception around my looks and basically defined the person that I should be and how I can show up in my life and what I'm worthy of. And I think that as a 16-year-old, I would definitely tell myself that I'm beautiful no matter what I look like. And I would also tell myself that I don't need to beat myself up and work so hard to do what I can already innately do in ballet. Yeah. And stop comparing myself. There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Stop comparing myself is a really good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for this conversation. That was delightful. Go check her out, guys. And it would mean the world to us if you just go and post on your IG story your biggest takeaway or even something that you completely don't agree with. We want to hear your feedback. We're sending you so much love. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.